Hello, my name is Joe, and I'm going to be going to a Tanksgiving tournament this Saturday up in Erie, PA at the Griffons Lair. It's a 1,300 point event. I figured I would talk about it just a little bit, just to kind of go over my list and just basically go over like the missions and talk about my ideas before we actually get into the tournament. And we'll see what happens this Saturday. We'll find out if I can come out on top or uh, basically who's going to win this thing, who's like what's going to happen. So let's start out here. So this Saturday, it's up at the Griffin's Lair in Erie, PA. It's 1,300 points. The only real restriction in the tournament basically is you have to have 550 points must be spent in an armor platoon. That's not that big of a deal. It's pretty simple because this is a Tanksgiving tournament. So hence the words, it's all about the tanks. So they want you to play tanks. They want you to bring tanks. And there's no other real restriction to that. Games are pretty normal, and they're going to have a champion overall, second, third place, best painted, and it's peer voted, and then best opponent peer voted, and then you'll have the tank ace, which I cannot say that word. That's a giant German word right there, but and it looks like they'll have major victories, and they'll have draws, minor loss, major loss. I actually like this scoring system a little bit better because it'll actually bring people out on top. So if you get a big win in a game, you'll get way more points and you'll separate you from somebody just barely winning. So it'll kind of like have more of a separation to the top, who's better, or like basically like the better players will kind of come out on top. So we're going to start out. My list is my Joe's Tankful Germans. I think they're one of the strongest, if not one of the best, like factions in the game, just because their rules are very solid. The Hitler's Buzzsaw, all the machine gun shots you get, very powerful. I'm taking 16 order dice, 1,300 points this event. So we're starting out. I'm taking a company commander, a captain major, which is a rifle inexperience. And the reason why I'm taking them as cheap as possible is you'll see when I get down to my tank platoon, it'll make a lot of sense why I'm taking a company commander, because I think the company commander is very necessary for this kind of build, and it's very powerful for this kind of build. So if you're going to play a list similar to this, I would highly recommend taking a company commander in your list to give you that +4 morale bonus around 12 inches. Next, we move down to the platoon commander. It's just a lieutenant, inexperienced, and you're going to notice something that I'm actually taking 4 guys here with SMGs. Well, the thing is, I actually have a plan for these guys. These guys are going to actually, they're going to hop inside of a vehicle. They're going to hop in a Hano mag with another squad, and I'm going to have 2 4-man squads that, yes, they're inexperienced, but SMGs at point blank, they don't care if the target is inexperienced, regular, or veteran. They're still going to put out damage. Even against veterans, submachine guns will still put 2 to 3 wounds. Well, this many shots, 8 submachine gun shots at point blank on even a veteran unit will put 2 to 3 wounds on them at point blank. That is still very, very, very good. So you can possibly kill 2 vets at point blank with submachine guns. And if you're running into inexperienced or regular, you're just going to shred them. You're just going to tear them to pieces. So I like that the officer squads can take more guys in them. It kind of like helps your like little rifle platoon a little bit. It makes them a little bit stronger. Now the next 2 squads I have, or I'm kind of like min-maxing here with them. I have 2 here infantry squads that are both 5-man with just a light machine gun and rifles. They're basically my backline objective holders. They're very cheap 65 point squads. Their job is going to be hold the backline objectives, just pop around the corner with their light machine gun and get those 5 shots downrange and throw out pins. Not only throw out pins, getting some wounds, getting some damage in, and just putting pressure on from long range. Next, we move to my veteran squad, and I'm taking an 8-man veteran squad here. So I'm just taking grenadiers with a light machine gun, 8-man, and this is going to be my push squad. They're going to slowly push forward, but at the same time, they got a light machine gun, so they can also inflict more damage with that light machine gun as they're moving forward to push an objective or to push my opponent's like infantry. I can push them with this squad because 8 guys, I feel pretty comfortable with veterans, 8-man squad of veterans to push forward and take them out. So my next squad I have is the Feldmarine squad here. Basically my MPs. They're my cheap, inexperienced unit, and the reason why I'm taking them is because I want to get the traffic direction rule. I think the traffic direction rule is kind of like very good. I think if you can take the MPs, either these guys or the veterans, I think that's what you want to do. If you can fit them in your list, you should fit them in your list. because having that ability to have traffic direction is very powerful. So these guys are also going to hop into Hanomag with those other 4 officer squad guys. So that'll give me a total of 8 submachine guns at point blank that I can put on somebody. And the real tactics with this is what I like to do. This is one of the strategies I actually like to do in V3, and something you can employ even with the new army books is you can take any type of armored transport that has a machine gun on it. And what you do is you'll roll up to your opponent. So you'll snap the whole entire unit, the officer squad, the infantry squad, and the half track. You'll snap the whole entire unit with the lieutenant. You'll move forward with the Hanomag. You'll fire as close as you can get. You might not be able to get the point blank, but you'll fire your machine gun and hopefully get 1 pin with the machine gun from the Hanomag. So if you only have a 3-man officer squad with SMGs, you'd hop out with your smaller squad first and then fire with your smaller squad next. What that smaller squad is going to do, it's actually going to it'll inflict damage. It won't inflict that much damage, but it'll put a couple wounds maybe. It might kill somebody, even vets. It might still do some damage. But the biggest thing is you're putting a second pin on here. That's the critical thing. And typically the last squad, you usually want them a little bit bigger. 4-man's the minimum I would go, but you probably want them 5 or 6-man if you can. I just didn't have a whole lot of points to try to fit everything in. So basically they're going to hop out and they're going to finish the job. And now you're not only going to get a 3rd pin, but you're going to hopefully you're going to force a morale test at -3 with those 3 pins. And a morale test at -3 means you might actually break that unit that you just rolled up on. So the strategy with this is kind of like a Death Star in a way, like a mini Death Star. It doesn't look that scary because they're inexperienced squads with SMGs, but when you roll up point blank on anything, they will still kill almost anything in the game at point blank. They will still hurt pretty much almost anything. If it's infantry, they will hurt them pretty bad. And if it's like small teams or anything like that, these squads will just wreck them. They'll just get shredded. Next, we have one of my favorite units in the game, which is the AT rifle, and it's veteran. If I can take veteran, I will always try to take veteran to keep them alive because 2-man teams are very hard to keep alive. They're very hard, it's very hard to keep them from not dying because in V3, so much stuff will take you down pretty quick. And I love the anti-tank rifle, 48-inch range, very powerful. The long range ability of this weapon, it not only can it pin infantry at long range, it can outrange snipers, it can outrange like a lot of things, it can outrange machine guns. So a lot of the threats that can actually hurt this thing, it can outrange. So it can outrange a lot of things that can actually hurt it. But at the same time, it's a good unit just to have to go on ambush and just basically use them later if you want to. So you just kind of put it on ambush and then you pop a shot, or it's even good just to pop a single shot. At Warzone Atlanta, I shot one single anti-tank rifle into a Panzer III. That one pin from the anti-tank rifle that I put on that Panzer III, even though I couldn't really hurt it from the front, I just put a pin on it. That one pin caused my opponent to have to take a morale test, and they foobarred. They foobarred and got the result where they had to shoot the closest thing to them, which was another friendly tank. They shot their own friendly tank right in the bum, and when they shot their own friendly tank, it blew up their tank. So not only did I take out one tank with it foobarring, their tank killed another tank just because of one shot from an AT rifle. This is one of the best values in the game right now. 33 points for an AT rifle, fantastic. And then I have my Hanomag at regular. Reason why I'll take this vehicle inexperienced. Reason why I'm rolling with it regular is because I have inexperienced squads inside, so it won't get that added bonus. It won't get that buff up. So I want to make sure I am least hitting and not getting more penalties. I'm trying to reduce as many penalties as I can so I can try to do a little bit more damage, get a little bit more hits in, because those 4 hits right there, they can actually do something. 4 machine gun shots on a Hanomag can actually do damage to something. So it's actually pretty good. Now we're moving on to my armored platoon. So starting out in the armored platoon, it's total of 675 points, which I spent a lot of my points in the armored platoon because it's very important for this kind of a tournament that you have the right tools to deal with enemy armor. Because the biggest thing you're going to be facing is you're going to be facing big tanks. You're going to be facing heavy tanks. You're going to be facing medium tanks. You're going to be facing even super heavy tanks. So there's going to be tanks out there that have medium anti-tank guns, heavy anti-tank guns, super heavy anti-tank guns. So you have to keep that in mind that your tanks are probably not going to last long. Like tanks shooting back and forth at each other in a Thanksgiving event, they're going to knock each other out pretty quick. So they're not going to survive probably past round three, a lot of tanks. So survivability, you can either spend a lot of points to try to get your tanks to survive, but if you're firing super heavy or heavy tanks, anti-tank guns back and forth at each other, it usually doesn't matter much because you're still going to knock each other out. It doesn't matter how much armor you have. So basically, I started out with Panzer One as my command vehicle. The reason why I went with this is my anti-infantry tank. 8 machine gun shots is very powerful, and the fact that it's my Panzer One means that if they want to kill my command tank, they have to shoot a tank that's not a tank that's probably going to kill them, or not a tank that they probably want to shoot at. So it's kind of like a non-threatening tank, but it's still threatening. What I like to do with the Panzer One is I'll actually try to have it drive in front of a tank to try to give them heavy cover, to try to basically drive and then turn itself to where it'll give cover to the tank behind it. So I'm getting heavy cover or I'm getting hard cover basically with that baby tank's going to give me hard cover while I'm pushing forward or while I'm basically having my guns locked down an area with my big heavy guns. Next, I'm taking a Panzer III, the C, and I got all the machine guns on 12 machine gun shots because this is also a anti-infantry option. I have a lot of stuff that's going to be able to reach out, hit your infantry very fast, very quickly. So if I can take out your infantry or threaten your infantry with all my stuff, you're not going to be able to hurt me with your infantry. And in those objective games, I'm going to be able to do stuff to you and who knows? All right, and then now my last three tanks, they're all the same. So my last three tanks I'm taking three Martyr 3s. And the reason why I'm taking three Martyr 3 M's is because there's two reasons why. I wanted a heavy anti-tank guns. I'm getting three heavy anti-tank guns. So this is my anti-tank unit. These three tanks right here are going to give me tools to deal with almost anything. Granted, if I'm fighting against a super heavy tank, they still might struggle a little bit to pen that because 11 plus armor is very hard to get through. So, and there is a mouse out there. So I don't know. That's very difficult to actually get through. So you might have to close distance or get point blank or something like that. But basically, against most things, light, medium, heavy tanks, you can knock them out with a heavy AT gun, not too hard. It's fairly it's for the point cost, 150 points. Sure, I'm only 7 plus. I'm open topped. But this is where the company commander plays in. So that company commander is critical because that company commander is going to protect my open top vehicles. And what he's going to do is, even though these tanks are open topped, they have a heavy AT gun which has a 72-inch range. So if I keep that in mind, 36 inches is my midpoint on this. If I keep that in mind, if I can get to about 36 inches with my tank, or if I in some rounds I might just want to stay back as far as possible and use my long range to outrange stuff where stuff can't hit me. So to have less things actually hit me, so the infantry squads can't shoot me, they can't put pins on me. But if they do put pins on me, that's what the company commander's for. Having that +4 morale bonus for your tanks that are open top, it basically means that even if you have pins, it's not really that big of a deal. Sure, it's going to hurt a little bit firing back if you got a couple pins, but if you only have one pin on you, it ain't that big of a deal. And the thing is, if they shoot at your tanks, like I said, in this type of event, most guns that are shooting at you are either heavy guns or super heavy guns back and forth. So your tanks are not going to survive usually most of the time. So I went with blast cannons kind of. They hit very hard. And the other reason why I went this route with the M's is because I want that Pintle 360 machine gun, because that Pintle machine gun protects me from airstrikes, because United States is one of the popular factions to play. And if I was playing United States, I would absolutely take an air observer, especially to this event, because most people who play a lot of tanks are probably not going to be bringing pintle mounted machine guns. Or if they are bringing pintle mounted machine guns, they probably won't have that many. They won't have that many weapons that's actually anti-air. So by having three of these tanks right here with pintle mounted machine guns plus my Hanomag, that gives me four vehicles that has 7 shots against aircraft. So even against the Soviets with their flying tank rule that they just got, that'll still knock down the Soviet planes and stuff like that. So that's a lot of firepower, and that's a really good protection against basically anything. It also gives me 2 weapons firing off of them. Even I can fire the infantry, I can fire the tank gun at tanks, and the machine gun at infantry. So what I would like to do, my ideal placement for like these kind of units will try to get to 36-inch range at least, because at 36 inches, I'm no longer at long range, not getting penalties for having my big gun at long range, and I'm still able to shoot stuff with my pintle machine gun too. That's kind of like the ideal thing. If I can close the distance, I will, and I'll try to get the point blank on stuff, and I'll play it smart or play it safe. But three martyrs pushing together, they're actually pretty strong, and they're actually pretty scary because that's a lot of heavy anti-tank guns, and a lot of lists that you're going to be playing against, they don't have that many tanks. They're not going to have 5 tanks. So 5 tanks, pretty good. Plus, I have a heavy weapons platoon. I didn't spend a lot of points in my heavy weapons platoon. I have an inexperienced lieutenant. Then I have a heavy mortar team that is inexperienced because, and I have 2 heavy mortars. So 2 heavy mortars is really, really good. Heavy mortars are good against medium tanks. They're good against heavy tanks. They're good against light tanks. Heavy mortars are good against infantry. They're good against open top vehicles. They're pretty much good against anything. If they hit you, they are going to hurt. They are absolutely going to hurt. Not only are they going to hurt you, they're going to do a lot of damage. The heavy mortars are going to do a lot of damage. I have one of them that's regular and one of them that's inexperienced. So one will peek around the corner because most of the time on most boards, you can put your mortar in a spot where one guy can peek around the corner and he usually can see something. Whereas the other mortar, I can deploy a spotter forward as basically decoy bait. If they want to shoot him, fine, it's whatever. It's okay. But my heavy mortar can hide a little bit. That one can hide a little bit at regular. It can hide. But the thing is that usually in each game, the heavy mortar usually does something once in each game, and it usually hits something. And when it hits that 3-inch template, the +3 penetration, +1 for top armor, +4, that still hurts a lot of tanks. It's still going to do damage. It's still going to put pins on stuff, and it's still going to hurt. So those heavy mortars can knock out lighter tanks. They can do stuff. So now we're going to go to the actual scenarios in the mission. So I'll talk about the scenarios. So the first scenario we have is uh, you get 3 victory points for every one of your units that move off your opponent's edge. Score 1 victory point for every unit inside the opponent's deployment zone, and receive 1 victory point for every enemy unit destroyed. There is no outflanking in this scenario. So that makes sense, no outflanking, because otherwise you would just outflank and just go like off your opponent's edge pretty much. So that makes sense there. So on this mission, if I can get my Hano mag to drive off the vehicle that's loaded up with a bunch of guys in it and we just drive off the table, that could be an option. It depends on who I'm playing against and what lists I'm facing off against. That could be an actual viable strategy that I could actually do. If my opponent's not really paying attention, I could load up my vehicle and try to go for that. But you have to be careful, because if you load up your vehicle with a lot of stuff, that could be a lot of kill points that you're going to give to your opponent for everything they're going to destroy. So you got to be careful with that right there and keep that in mind. But the other thing is, if you get to your opponent's edge, you get 1 victory point for each unit inside your opponent's deployment zone. So you could try to play this mission as just a kill points mission, just try to slowly wither away your opponent and then slowly try to take them. But if you score 3 or more victory points than your opponent, you get a major victory. 1 or 2 is only a minor victory. Tied, you get that. So that's pretty simple. It's long edges, medium engagement, so you're walking on the table. So scenario number 2 is there's gonna be 3 poker chips placed on the board. Each turn you have to have infantry or artillery with no other enemy unit within 3 inches of the edge of the chip. You will score 1 victory point. Score 1 victory point for every enemy unit destroyed. So if you capture it and there's no enemy units within 3 inches, you get 1 victory point per turn. This one encourages you to have infantry, and it encourages you to move your infantry forward. So I kind of expect the objectives are probably going to be like, you'll probably have one center line. You'll probably have one that's like literally like 24 inches, like smack dab in the middle of the table, and 36 inches like in this from the center on the each side. Then you'll probably have 2 other objectives on 18 inches on the right and left of it in the center. That's what I kind of expect with this one. So it'll probably be something like that. But it's quarters. So quarters is a little bit interesting, and the fact that you start in prepared positions, you actually start on the table, is also a little bit interesting with this one too. So, and you can outflank on this one, so there is outflanking and reserve, so you can reserve or outflank. Now, I'll have to check to see if we'll be able to reserve if you get your whole table edge and you reserve, or if it's only like in your quarters. But I'll have to ask, check with that to make sure. But reserves and outflanking can be powerful, and like these kind of missions to kind of like save your stuff to kind of like bring in. But your infantry you kind of want on the table so you can get those objectives early, because in V3 objectives are sticky, and getting to those objectives early is what kind of matters. So getting on those objectives early and start getting those points, that's what really matters. And then the last one is you get one victory point for every enemy unit destroyed, which makes sense. So it's a kind of like a kill point mission. And you score an additional victory point if that unit is an officer or command vehicle. And you score an additional victory point if it's a vehicle. Therefore, destroying an enemy command tank will result in 3 victory points. So command tanks, basically, you need to hide them on this mission if you're not going to use it. But it's going to make it tough because it's a fog of war mission. So it's a modified fog of war, which is fog of war's chaos, even though they make it to where you cannot come on the last board edge your opponent's used. I asked a question to the TO about this mission. And what if somebody brings on, like, you bring on one of your tanks behind your opponent? Now your opponent's locked. They can't come on that. So I asked, well, what happens if I bring on another one of my vehicles on the same spot where I just brought on like one of my things? So now I'm just stacking on my opponent's side and just overwhelming them from behind, and they can't deploy there. And they said, the TO is like, well, that's fine. You can keep doing that. And then if I kept doing that over and over and over again, I can lock that edge of the table. I can block it for the remainder of the game. So whatever the last vehicle. So if you kept coming on one spot over and over and over again, your opponent can't come on that side, which I think is kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like a feels bad like play. If someone does that, like someone could just keep deploying on the same side over and over and over and just blocking it, whoever gets to go first. So I don't like that. I think the whole idea is, and what it should be, is that if you're going to deploy one of your units, you block the next thing. However, if you draw an additional dice, not only is your opponent's blocked, but you should block that edge even from yourself. So you cannot deploy back to back on the same spot. I think that would be more fair. It would be more balanced. But this mission is going to be chaos because fog of war, even though you're popping in from everywhere, it means you're going to get point blank stuff. It means even AT rifles can get point blank shots on armor. Not only can AT rifles get point blank shots on armor, it means that tanks are going to be rolling up point blank, getting rear shots on stuff. You're going to be getting up in people's faces. There's going to be a lot of damage, and it's going to be pretty bloody. It's going to be pretty brutal. So that's the 3 missions. That's the event. I wish everybody going to the Tanksgiving event in Erie good luck, and we'll see who comes out on top, and we'll see who wins this. All right. See you later.